The objects people choose to keep in their home define who they are. This is Objectified Dana White.
I told my wife I want the trophy right here in my hands when they bury me, man. It's my favorite thing ever.
I'm Harvey Levin. This is the story of the brash, loudmouth fight promoter from Boston, whose risky business venture turned mixed martial arts into one of the most lucrative and entertaining sports in the world.
Defending 155-pound champion of the UFC!
Dana White grew up raising hell.
I've got arrested in Vegas for fighting and up in Maine and Massachusetts. I forgot about Massachusetts.
It took a chance encounter with one of America's most notorious underbosses for Dana to finally pursue that dream.
There was a guy named Whitey Bulger. He said to me, "You owe us money." I literally hung up the phone and got a one-way ticket to Vegas.
And it was there Dana built his empire by partnering with two high school friends to buy a mixed martial arts league on the brink of bankruptcy, which they turned into a multi-billion-dollar company.
Oh! She slapped him!
Dana has made his fair share of friends and enemies along the way, but he's not about to switch up the game plan that got him here. He trusts his gut.
Anybody who follows what they love, I believe that you're going to be successful at it.
Dana White, one of the most successful and confident sports moguls in America, who's never been one to shy away from a good fight.
Dana.
What's up, my friend?
It's so good seeing you.
Good to see you, too.
Okay, I have never been to this facility. It is shocking. It is one of the nicest facilities. When did you build it?
It turned out well. We moved in last year, a little over a year ago.
That's what $4 billion gets you, doesn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn about your life through objects you've chosen to keep.
All right.
I am awestruck by that saber tooth. Explain it to me.
Yeah, so about 2008, 2009, when the economy crashed, I saw that thing was available from a museum down in Dallas. You know, museums were running out of money, and they started auctioning off some real stuff, and I had to have it.
They're aggressive animals.
They are aggressive animals.
You're pretty aggressive, too.
I can be aggressive.
And you were pretty aggressive growing up.
Yeah, I've always been an aggressive person. I think, when you're younger, the aggression is kind of negative, but as you get older and, grow up a little, the aggression is a positive thing.
So you had kind of a turbulent early part of your life. Your parents divorced. Your dad was a firefighter, but there were problems.
Yeah, my dad was a big drinker, partier. My dad was one of those guys that, partying meant more to him than hanging out with his kids.
So he kind of ignored you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were days that my sister and I he was supposed to pick us up and take us to the movies or hang out with us, whatever, and he would never show up, and we'd just be sitting out on the bench waiting for him, Or he'd come over and show up so drunk that we wouldn't want to go with him.
Was he abusive when he lived with you?
Yeah. He was, typical alcoholic that drinks too much. Yeah, he wasn't fun to be around.
And there was really no relationship after you grew up?
I don't have a relationship with my dad.
You were, I don't want to say a bad kid, but you had your share of trouble.
Yeah, I did. I was a bad kid. I'd get into lots of trouble. Got caught at pretty much everything I did. And I wasn't a big school guy. I didn't like school.
You hated school?
I hated school. I hated everything about school. I hated the structure of it. I hated studying. I hated the teachers. I hated everything about it.
So you went to Catholic school. Your mom sent you to Catholic school.
I did.
And you got expelled.
I did. I got kicked out twice.
How's that?
I got kicked out for fighting. I got in fights. It's funny because Vegas back then, there were a lot of fights here from a young age. Kids would fight after school. Schools would fight other schools. And every weekend we went out, there were fights in the park. There were a lot of fights in Vegas.
What were your dreams as a kid? So you're having trouble in school. You don't have the greatest relationship with your parents. So what are the dreams you have for yourself?
I always knew there were certain things when you're a kid that I always wanted a beach house. I always wanted a Ferrari. And I always wanted to be in the fight business.
And you knew that?
Period.
You knew that from a young age?
From a young age, I knew it.
Why?
I don't know. I've always been fascinated by fighting. From boxing to Bruce Lee movies, Chuck Norris, any type of martial arts. But at one point, boxing completely consumed my life. It was everything to me.
You were arrested for fighting at times.
Yeah, I got arrested in Vegas for fighting and up in Maine and Massachusetts.
Oh, and Massachusetts.
Yeah, I forgot about
Any other states?
Yeah.
Any other states?
No, that's it. That's it.
Was the dream that you were going to be a fighter? Or that you were going to be a businessman?
No,
business?
it wasn't a businessman, and it wasn't a fighter. It's that I was going to be in the business, that I was going to be in the fight business, one way or another. It's what my passion was.
Where are we?
So this is a performance institute. They have everything here. So they have cardio. There's a cold plunge in here. There's an underwater treadmill. This right here is a chamber. You go in there and you work out in altitude, and that thing goes as high as, I believe, 12,000 feet.
And this is where fighters train.
This is where fighters come in here. They train for free. All their supplements are free. There's a restaurant over here. They eat for free. That's physical therapists back there. All the physical therapy is free. Everything is free if you're under contract with us.
Tell me what that is.
So, this is a picture of me at the Boston Harbor Hotel. That's Prince Philip. He was visiting the hotel. I'm this guy.
How can that be you?
Come on, I'm the young-looking guy.
So, you barely graduated high school.
Right.
What was your game plan?
Well, when you barely graduate high school, you got to get out there and get a job.
Yeah.
And started as a bouncer in Boston. I worked at an Irish bar called the Black Rose.
Were you good at it?
Downtown. I was too good at it. I got fired for it.
Why?
I got fired for fighting.
Oh, God.
Again.
Jeez.
Yeah. And from there, I got me a job at EJ Paving.
You were pouring asphalt.
The hardest job I've ever had in my life. From there, I went to the Boston Harbor Hotel, and I was a bellman there.
So you're doing fine as a bellman, and then you have an epiphany.
Every morning when I woke up and drove to work, I hated it. I hated going to that job. I hated everything about it. And one day, they used to make us post up and stand up against the marble like this. And I'm standing there going, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? I literally walked off, was walking out the front door, and I ran into a buddy of mine. And he said, what's going on? What are you doing? I said, I quit. I swear to God. I said, I'm going to get into the fight business. He goes, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. And
you ever talk to that guy?
Oh, we talk all the time. He's like, thank God you didn't take my advice.
Right. So you became an amateur fighter.
Yes.
What was your record?
Not good. I would never take it back. I'm so happy I did it. You know, it was part of the evolution of this, because it's hard to relate to these guys and what they do if you've never been there and done it. And I've done everything in the fight business except I've never judged a fight.
Your first success really came as a boxer-size instructor.
We weren't boxer-size instructors. We taught boxing classes. That's what we did.
It was for housewives and businessmen.
Exactly.
And it caught on, and it did well.
Yes.
So what happened?
Did really well.
What happened?
What happened was, in Boston, at that time, there was a guy named Whitey Bulger who ran the town.
He was a mob boss.
Yeah. And he had guys under him. And one of the guys was Kevin Weeks. And they showed up at one of my classes one day, him and another guy. They walked right into my class. Like, we need to talk to you. You owe us money. And I was like, no. Before he said that, he said to me, you know who I am?
You knew it was a mob.
Yeah. They said, you got till tomorrow to pay us $2,500. And I said, I don't have $2,500. They said, you better get it. Better find it. And I literally hung up the phone, picked it back up, and called Delta and got a one-way ticket to Vegas. I left everything. And then maybe 6 to 8 months later, they started digging up all the bodies at the beach, and Whitey fled, and all that stuff started going down.
So you moved to Vegas, and you become a big hit with aerobics.
Boxing Fitness, it was called. So I taught classes at the clubs. They were huge, packed.
Like 150 people,
Yeah, packed.
Yeah.
Then I had a gym where I took people in and trained them private lessons. They took private lessons, and I used to have these boxing clinics that I would do every 5 weeks.
So a turning point in your life, as I understand it, came in the mid-90s when you went to a wedding and you ran into an old high school friend.
I show up at the wedding, and Lorenzo Fertitta approaches me. And he's like, hey, what's up? How you been? And we start talking, and he's like, I heard you're boxing. And I said, yeah. And he says, well, I just got into the Nevada State Athletic Commission. He says, let's get together. I'd like to train. I said, awesome. So that Monday, him and his brother Frank show up, and they started training with me, and we've literally been together ever since.
My understanding is it went from boxing to MMA because of a Limp Bizkit concert.
Yeah, so Frank and I were at the Hard Rock. Limp Bizkit was playing that night, and I saw this guy, John Lewis. And John Lewis was the first guy to have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school in town here, and he was a UFC fighter.
Right.
So Frank says, oh yeah, that's that UFC guy. He goes, I've always wanted to learn ground fighting. And I was like, me too. So we set up an appointment, told Lorenzo. Lorenzo came too on Monday. The rest is history. We started training. We fell in love with it. We met BJ Penn. We met Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, you know, and all these guys that were stars in the UFC at the time. And we were blown away by how smart they are, what great athletes they are, what good people they are.
So you have a successful boxing aerobics class, living in Vegas, and you're making money.
Right.
Were you satisfied?
No, I loved what I was doing, but it was always about what's next, what's next, what's next. Even today, what's next? I'm always looking at what's next.
So 2004, UFC was still failing. You were $44 million in debt.
Right.
So what turned it around? This is the fruits of your labor here. This is the octagon.
You know, it's crazy. It's true, because when we bought the UFC, what we really paid for was an old wooden octagon. That was it.
The octagon was wood?
Yeah, it was an old, nasty wood octagon. And when people would get slammed on it, there was no give, because the thing would actually sit on concrete inside the arenas.
Let me take you back to 2000. The UFC was failing.
Lorenzo Fertitta and I have known each other since high school. And when we reconnected in like 95, we had always said, let's do something together in the fight business. Let's do something together. And I said, the UFC's in trouble. I just found out that these guys are going out of business, and I think we can buy it, and I think we should.
But why did you think something that was failing could succeed?
We were blown away by the fighters, how intelligent they were, how athletic they were. And we said, wow, imagine if you marketed it this way. And I just believed, could we be that off? Could we be that wrong? I always felt like not only could this thing be big, it could be big all over the world. And when you get into the culture of mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu and fighting, it's very addictive. And it almost becomes a lifestyle for a lot of people. And I felt it, I knew it, and I just had something in my gut that said, this thing's gonna work.
And you had to convince the Fertitta brothers, and you bought it for $2 million.
Exactly.
What else does the UFC have to look forward to?
Basically what we want to do is we want to make the Super Bowl of mixed martial arts. We want to make it more fan-friendly, we want to get the crowd involved in it, and we want to bring back the best fighters in the world.
The UFC was being marketed as a super violent sport, that you could watch somebody possibly get killed. They were gouging people. They were, what do you call it, fish hooking people with their mouths and ripping their mouths open.
Each match will run until there is a designated winner by means of knockout, surrender, doctor's intervention, or death.
Was that why it was failing?
Yeah, that was part of it. And the guys who were running it at that time were very combative. We came in and said, this many people want to watch a freak show. This many people want to watch a real sport. So we ran toward regulation, turning it into a real sport. And the reality was, these fighters aren't killers. These guys are great guys. They're incredible athletes. Most of them have families. Most of them graduated from college. So the way it was being marketed, it might have worked for the first couple of them, but that wasn't a good long-term plan.
The perception at some point was that a bunch of Neanderthals get in an octagon.
Bonner relentless in his attack. Force with a counter.
And the reality is you hired a lot of guys who are accomplished. I think you have a doctor fighting. You have a lot of college grads.
College graduates, guys who've written best-selling books for the New York Times, you know, and people who have gone on to do other things after their fight career.
You know, there are a lot of fighters, men and women, under the UFC umbrella. Good looking.
Right.
Does that help?
That definitely helps. Listen, at the end of the day, when you're in the fight business, you're looking for people who can fight. People who can fight, who are so good that you know they're going to be a world champion someday or in the top 5, right? Now, If it ends up that they're really good looking and they speak really well too, now you got a home run.
Can I give you my opinion?
Yep.
I think one of the reasons you've succeeded spectacularly is that pretty much everybody likes to watch a fight, but a lot of people are afraid to admit it.
Right.
And you made it entertaining.
And he goes down. He's down. And Chuck Liddell. Oh, he is out. Light heavyweight champion of the world. Randy Couture is out.
Thank you. I agree with you. Fighting's in our DNA. We get it and we like it. And it's the truth. We are, even as human beings, since the beginning of time, if you think of the most famous athletes to ever walk the face of the earth, none of them are more famous than fighters. Since the beginning of time.
You credit Donald Trump for helping the UFC succeed.
You know, when we started this thing, we were just talking about all the negativity that went along with it. Venues didn't want us to come to their city and perform there. We were having trouble, you know, booking places. Donald Trump called, said, love to have you down here in Atlantic City. And not only did he invite us down, not only did he cut us a great deal to come there, he showed up for the first fight of the night and stayed till the last fight.
How do you feel about tonight? This is pretty exciting.
It's been very exciting, amazing.
Are you a big fan?
Well, I'm a fan, and I'm becoming more of a fan. We have 13 or 14,000 people tonight.
So 2004, UFC was still failing. You were $44 million in debt.
Right.
So what turned it around?
So at the time, reality television was huge. And we tried to figure out how do we capitalize on reality TV, yet it's the fight business. Nobody wanted to do it. So the Fertittas said, forget it. We'll do it ourselves. We'll do everything ourselves. So we financed the thing ourselves, which was around $10 million. And we came out with what we believed would be our reality show with The Ultimate Fighter.
Gentlemen, you have a very unique opportunity. Many fighters from all over the world dream of someday fighting in the UFC. 2 of you actually will. Over the next 50 days, 2 legends in the world of mixed martial arts will be instrumental in deciding who wins the UFC contracts.
And it was a huge hit. Fair to say that the turnaround that made it a massive hit was one of the fighters peeing in another fighter's bed.
Is he coming? You know what? I didn't take a leak on his bed. I spritzed. Oh, there he goes. Let's rub it in. There's a difference. This little, you know, little sprinkle, little hey.
That was the first episode. You're right, yes. When you get a bunch of grown men in a house together, they're all going to fight each other at some point. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
So 2016, you sell this for $4 billion.
4.025 billion.
That's when you get to 4. Who cares about the 025?
Yeah.
Chump change.
Apparently we did, because we negotiated another .025.
I read your cut was something like $360 million.
Right.
And that you flipped out and went into hiding. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I did.
I don't understand.
I'm a very routine person. I get up and I do the same workout. I eat the same things, and then I go here and I do. So I'm a very routine type guy, and my whole world was, you know, so far from my routine. It was crazy, and yeah, I don't know if I was ready to sell.
How do you feel about it now?
No, I'm pretty happy. It all worked out.
Yeah, really.
So I talk to the Fertittas every day, and you know, I'm still an owner. Yeah, I mean, it's all good.
A few years back, you told TMZ there wouldn't be a female fighter ever.
When are we going to see women in the UFC, man?
Never.
Never? Never?
Yeah, that one came back to bite me in the ass a million times.
In the form of Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
Here we go! Tonight's fight clock. Wow, right down. Look at that. Tonight's fight clock brought to you by Bud Light, Joe. Perfect fit for whatever happens. Ronda wants to make it happen quickly. Yeah, she gave There's the arms. It is all over. Just like that.
She changed it, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, she changed everything. She changed me. She changed people's perception of women. She changed women's perception of women. She changed what little girls believe is possible. I mean, and she changed the fight game.
This sport, this revolution, together we have redefined what it means to be strong, to be sexy. We changed what it means to fight like a girl.
Conor McGregor kind of your Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, definitely.
I've ridiculed everyone on the roster. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the wants.
He's my Ali, he's my Tyson. Yeah, he burst onto the scene, and I knew the minute I sat down and had dinner with him that this kid was going to be a star. I didn't know if he'd be able to fight, and I didn't know if he'd be able to win a title, but I knew he was going to be a star.
Lorenzo Fertitta said,
if I had gone out and bought the UFC and went out and hired a Harvard MBA or some guy that ran a big corporation, we'd have been toast a long time ago. Dana was the perfect fit.
That's high praise for you.
Yeah, that was nice of him.
That's high praise for you. Sometimes passion beats education.
It does. It absolutely does. I believe that anybody who follows what they love and what they're passionate about to do, I believe that you're going to be successful at it. I truly do.
You are fiercely loyal to Donald Trump.
I'm never going to say anything bad about Donald Trump, ever. I am very good to the people that are good to me. And yeah, I can go the other way too. If you don't want to be my friend, then we can definitely be enemies. I'm good with that too.
This room is remarkable.
Thank you. Nobody's seen this room except for my inner circle. Yeah. This room I built because I can't travel to all the fights like I used to. So I went on a 12 or 13 year run where I didn't miss a fight all over the world. So so I built this room so in here I can talk directly to the truck no matter where we are in the world. I watch the fights here. I got a chef in the other room. He cooks me dinner. And I sit in here and watch the fights, and I talk to the truck and run the entire production from here.
The truck where the control room is.
Right.
Okay, so this chapter of your life is about allies and enemies. Tell me about this.
So this is an email from Mark Cuban, who used to be an enemy and became an ally. When this thing started to take off, everybody and their brother got into the business, and Cuban was one of them.
So you're actually a fan of MMA, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna get involved in something unless I like it, you know. And so I started watching back, 5 years ago maybe when WEC was on HDNet, and that's what got me into it. And so we've just continued to expand.
So somehow he connects with Randy Couture.
Fighter.
Yes. And Randy Couture is trying to get out of his UFC contract and basically trying to, cast me as the devil and all these horrible things, that I've done and all this stuff.
To get out of the contract so that he could go with Mark Cuban's?
Yeah, with Cuban and another group. Didn't work out, so he ends up staying with the UFC.
And you were pissed off at Mark Cuban for trying to take him away?
Well, it's just like, I'm not going to do business with Cuban. So during this, me and Cuban are at a nightclub called Tryst at Wynn, and he's there, and, we kind of get up on the stools and kind of start going at each other.
For real?
Oh yeah. So we get into it at Tryst, and the whole court case happens. We win. August 19th, 2010, I get an email out of the blue from Mark Cuban. It says, just write you a check for $1 million so we can get past this. So Cuban, we ended up doing a deal for $2 million, and not only did we start doing business with Cuban, but Cuban has become a good friend of mine, and I like and respect him very much.
So you once said, you want to be my friend, I'm the best friend you could ever have. You want to go the other way, I'm for sure the worst enemy you could ever have.
That is true. I am very good to the people that are good to me. And yeah, I can go the other way too. If you don't want to be my friend, then we can definitely be enemies. I'm good with that too.
On the friend side, you are fiercely loyal to Donald Trump.
Yes. Yes, even before there were ever any presidential talks or any of that stuff. And Donald Trump was one of the guys who also started to get into MMA.
For over 15 years, Donald Trump has been a loyal and supportive friend. And I know that if I needed Donald, he would be there for me, just like he was when I first met him.
I'm never going to say anything bad about Donald Trump, ever. Ever, ever, ever. That guy gave us our start when nobody would talk to us. No arenas wanted us. This guy reached out, and he's always been a friend to me. The guy's always been a friend to me. Donald Trump has never done anything remotely negative to me ever, except try to compete with me. I'm not going to say anything negative about him, and I never have.
The biggest feud may have been with a guy that you first managed, Tito Ortiz.
Yeah, they look at it just slaves for you, man. That's what it comes down to. That's all they care.
That's what all these guys feel like, slaves.
No.
These guys are competitors who come in here and want to prove that they're the best. Some of them fight
because you're going to make them a
4 times
superstar.
a year.
Because you're going to make them a superstar.
Because this is what they want to be.
That's your quote words.
No,
I'm going to make you a superstar.
No, you're the one that wants to be a superstar. These guys want to be fighters. That's the difference.
Okay.
So Tito and I, at that point in both of our careers, we just could not get along. We could not get along. It was so bad that I don't know if I've ever been that at odds with anybody in my life like I was with Tito.
I have never heard in my career of the owner of a company essentially challenging an employee to a fight.
I did not. He challenged me.
You accepted.
So in the new contract that he filled out, he did the contract with Lorenzo because he and I couldn't even be in the same room. He is the one that said, I'll sign this if I can set up a boxing match with Dana for 3 rounds. So accepted. Lorenzo called me. I was like,
you said yes.
Absolutely. Do it. Yes. Trained for it. I brought in like real guys. I spent serious time really training for this fight. And I was absolutely going to do it.
He blinked.
He did. He blinked. And I'm pretty sure he's admitted that he did. But he basically sent me a text and said, I'm going to let you off the hook.
Could you have won?
Yeah, I would have won. I absolutely would have won that boxing match. He knows it too. That's why we didn't box.
You have been fiercely loyal to a lot of your fighters. At the same time, when you feel they're not up to par, you have sometimes berated them on Twitter and talked about how boring they were, how bad they were.
Right.
It kind of pissed people off.
Right. Well, guess what? This isn't the fun business. This isn't. You don't get to go out and just put on a terrible performance and act like you just did something incredible.
This sums it up. They broke a record tonight. The least punches ever thrown in the crappiest fight you've ever seen was 130 punches. They threw 60. Okay, so that's how bad the fight was.
And the guys that I went after, and the guys that I did that to, if you watch their performances and what happened that night, most of them deserved
it. You are the face and in many ways the mouth of UFC. I mean this respectfully. In some ways you remind me of those barkers outside of a strip club because you're just unrelenting that way.
Oh, believe me, I've heard that one before.
Oh, really? Okay, tell me about the guitar.
So, growing up and still today, I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan. And this is signed by all 3 of the Beastie Boys. I got it at the Tony Hawk auction.
And I've seen other guitars you have from other celebrities, too.
Yeah, so I'm a big Peppers fan, too, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. And Anthony Kiedis is a good friend and a huge UFC fan. He's such a fan that even the stuff that we do on Fight Pass, he'll be on the road, he'll watch it on his phone or on his computer. He watches everything. And those are actually Flea's bass guitars spun by Damien Hirst.
You love being a celebrity.
Listen, being a celebrity has its ups and downs, but what I would say that I love more is when I go out, you know how most people get bothered by people coming up. People come up to you at dinner. I'd never say no to people. I'm just as happy to meet them as they are to meet me.
Tell me about partying with celebs. I mean, that's a part of your DNA, just like fighting is.
Yeah, well, especially when I was younger. I can't party the way I used to, but yeah, I mean, I've partied with tons of people, but I like hanging out. I like hanging out with people that I actually really like. I don't just hang out with a celebrity because he's a celebrity.
I've known you now for a number of years, and I knew you before you came upon this huge windfall of money.
Right.
I mean, you were doing well, but not like this.
Right.
I don't think you've changed. I mean, honestly, you seem like the same guy to me.
You know, it's the most important thing in the world to me. People I knew 30 years ago still say that. That's important to me.
You are the face and in many ways the mouth of UFC. I mean this respectfully. In some ways, you remind me of those barkers outside of a strip club that's just trying to get people in under the tent all the time.
Oh, yeah.
The reigning, defending, 155-pound champion of the UFC, the notorious Conor McGregor!
Because you're just unrelenting that way.
Oh, believe me, I've heard that one before.
Oh, really?
But yeah, me and Joe Rogan, we're pumping up the fights, but that's what we do.
Part of what makes you stand out is colorful language. What's your favorite word?
Is my favorite word. Yeah, I love it. It is absolutely my favorite word. Lorenzo just sent me a hoodie today as a gift, and it's Yves Saint Laurent. It says creative, is what the hoodie says. And it's my word.
You are famous at places like the Palace Station Casino.
Yeah, I've hung around there a couple times.
And blackjack's your passion.
I love playing blackjack, but I love to win. There's obviously super highs and super lows when you're playing. I was playing, when you're going to ask my wife, I was playing that stuff when I was broke. I have a trophy, and because I'm a celebrity, they invited me to play in this $250,000 winner-take-all. I think it was like a 54-man tournament. Long story short, I make it to the last table, and you can feel the tension. I won.
Wow.
I won the whole tournament, and I won $250,000, won the tournament, and the trophy sits in my office, and I swear to God, you know how when you pass away and you're in the coffin, I told my wife I want the trophy right here in my hands when they bury me, man. It's my favorite thing ever. I'm undefeated.